Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the 2023 Ontario Pre-Budget Recommendation webinar. My name is Chelsea Goverdon, and I am the Ontario Government Relations Specialist at HRAI. And today I'll be going through an overview of what a pre-budget submission is, why it's important, and all of the recommendations that you'll be providing feedback on so HRAI can carry forward the message of what the HVAC industry needs from the Ontario government. So once again, thanks for everyone being here. Matt had gone through some rules about providing questions and comments through the Q&A feature. So feel free to provide any comments through those two features, the chat function and the Q&A throughout the presentation. And at the end, we can review some of those questions and provide some feedback either through me giving an answer here or following up through a written submission. Quick introduction. So today we'll be going through some of the topics, and you'll be able to provide some input onto the topics that HRAI should consider for our 2023-2024 pre-budget submission to the Ontario government. We'll start off today by talking about what a pre-budget submission is. So every year, the Finance Committee at the Ontario Legislature, which is a committee made up of different MPPs from the various parties, they come together and they provide a request to individuals and organizations to provide advice on recommendations that they should put forward to the Minister of Finance, who on behalf of the government of the day creates a financial plan for the upcoming year. Each year, the budget will change depending on a variety of factors. This can depend on factors like changing economic conditions and volatile resource prices in the province, as well as public priorities, including research and feedback from Ontarians like yourself that help the government identify shifting priorities. Why is this an important process? So HRAI and its members now have an opportunity to give recommendations to the government as they plan for their fiscal year. This gives the HVAC industry a voice and makes sure that we're counted when the government is looking towards making investments in industries that matter the most to our province. These recommendations give the government a course of action on particular issues of concern for our industry, and again, provides that voice to make sure that we're heard and we're counted on. Before I go into the recommendations that we've created, I wanted to give some feedback and get some feedback and also review the process for how we came up with these recommendations and these perspective ideas. Throughout the year, HRAI has surveyed our members through a variety of mechanisms, through direct surveys, as well as participation from our members in committees and chapter meetings. We really listened to our members in these venues to hear what were the challenges that they were experiencing day to day in their businesses, as well as listening to what are the topics, the general themes and topics that were causing issues for our industry, and how can we ask and form them into particular asks to the government to remedy and work in partnership with our industry to create tangible solutions. So from those various points of feedback, we were able to create the following recommendations, which I'll be going over today. So today we'll be reviewing 6 different recommendations, and polling functions will be pulled up for every slide, so you can give your feedback on whether or not you think this is an important issue that we should carry forward in our submission. The first topic will be support for an HVAC workforce development plan. So the HVAC industry recommends for the Government of Ontario to commit $5 million towards the support of an HVACR workforce development plan that would ensure the adequate supply of appropriate qualified industry personnel to meet the emerging needs resulting from a transition to a low carbon economy. This was a topic that we heard from many different parts of our industry, from the union, non-union, commercial, residential, manufacturers, wholesalers, and contractors. It's not a surprise that we are experiencing major issues with finding adequately trained people to represent our industry. And the government of the day has made commitments to supporting the trades. They have made financial contributions, including investments in the development of apprenticeship programs and supporting employers. But our industry is facing unique challenges that we believe that we need to ask for specific financial commitments for. So this is one of the topics that we hope to bring forward. Matt, could you pull up the poll for question 1, and we'll ask for everyone to submit whether or not they support the inclusion of this HVAC workforce development plan as a recommendation for our budget submission. Perfect, and we'll give a minute. And we will move to the next recommendation, which is for HVAC manufacturing supports. Again, this was another issue that we heard throughout various interactions with our members. The recommendation here would be for the government of Ontario to explore supports that would encourage HVACR manufacturing in the province. Looking at the way that COVID, as well as conflicts around the world, have impacted, has caused market disruptions, we're looking to gain support from the government to kind of create a reliable and consistent product flow and support the growth of domestic markets. So with this recommendation, we would be, again, asking the government to support and encourage HVAC manufacturing in the province. So Matt, could you pull up the poll for this one? Perfect, and we'll give a minute. Again, a reminder that you can use the Q&A and chat functions to raise any comments or questions that you have about any of the recommendations. And we'll move to the third possible recommendation, which is improvements to indoor air quality. So this recommendation would see us asking the government of Ontario to make specific investments in measures that would support improvements in IEQ and ventilation standards. Again, another topic that was raised for public concerns on COVID. Addressing indoor air quality in homes and buildings has never been more important and is definitely a topic of concern to the public and to government. So we would be asking the government to work with industry to establish professional workforce capable of identifying and addressing IEQ problems. We'd urge the government to take guidance from existing authorities such as HRAI and would include possible recommendations for researching and selecting relevant professional standards, identifying appropriate testing equipment, and setting standards for training and certification of IEQ professionals. So Matt, I'll ask you to pull up the poll for this one.
Chelsea, can I just interject here? It's Martin. We don't have a huge group on the call. I'm just wondering if should we pause on any of these for comments or questions, or do you want to do that at the end?
Well, we have 3 more.
Just I think there might be some thoughts about this, some of these topics. So just asking because we have a small group.
Yeah, sure. Matt, are we able to allow people to unmute should they have a question, or I don't see any questions in the Q&A just yet.
Okay, all right.
Pop them in the Q&A. They don't have the
Okay,
chat.
that's fair. Yeah, if anyone has a question, please do indicate and we can pause. Thanks.
Perfect. And seeing no questions or comments on this recommendation, we'll move to the next recommendation, which is one that we've heard members discuss several times, which would be the elimination of municipal contractor licensing or permitting. So this recommendation would see the Government of Ontario eliminate heating contractor licensing at the municipal level. We've identified this permitting process that many municipalities in Ontario are using as a redundant system because we already have an existing provincial licensing process through Skilled Trades Ontario, which is the new governing body for the skilled trades in the province, as well as at TSSA and the licensing process that they oversee. The issue has gained attention over the last year because it's been causing undue financial and administrative burden to our contractor members and adds no additional safety measures for the public. It's been characterized often as a cash grab and as a redundant permitting process. So this recommendation would see the elimination of this permitting process in lieu of relying on the permitting process for Skilled Trades Ontario and TSSA. So Matt, I will ask you to pull up the poll. Perfect. And as people answer this poll, I do see that we had a question from Tim asking, will the survey results be shared? Yes, we will be sharing results from this polling, as well as we will be following up with a survey that will be sent out to all Ontario members, reviewing these recommendations, asking for feedback. So you will also have an opportunity to fill that out. I'll share the link after the webinar, but we'll also be looking at the results of those two polls combined as we make the recommendations in the budget submission. You should see the results in a news article that we will release once the budget submission is submitted. Perfect. And we'll move on to the next recommendation. So this recommendation is for a tax credit for the purchase of non-fossil fuel heating and cooling systems. This would call for the Government of Ontario to provide a 30% tax credit to homeowners and businesses for the purchase of non-fossil fuel emitting heating and cooling systems. The impetus for this recommendation comes from similar initiatives that we've seen across the country and in other provinces where it's gained much support. It would be a program that would help incentivize homeowners and businesses to make particular decisions. It reduced the burden of cost, which is often cited as one of the major factors, particularly for homeowners when looking at purchasing particular products. And I see that we have a question. Matt, could you pull up the poll for this one as I check out the comments?
My apologies. The poll has ended. I'm having trouble pulling it back up. Here you go.
Okay, and I see a comment here calling for the inclusion of a transition from electric heat to heat pumps. Martin, do you want to comment on that?
Comment on this recommendation?
Yep, or in the chat, we had a suggestion to include transition from electric heat to heat pumps.
Sorry, I need to go and quickly check the. Oh yes, in other words, not just off fossil fuels, but also off baseboard electric. Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't be good to include. I think the government would support that from a conservation standpoint, maybe more than a decarbonization standpoint. But it's a good point. So yes, we would ask for that as well. And the reason we talk about this tax credit is our sense is that the government in Ontario might be more amenable to tax credit measures than direct rebates. They seem not to be too keen on cash rebates for any type of decarbonization program. We think we might be able to recommend a tax credit.
Perfect. And I also see a comment here from Tim that this could help reduce the demand on the electrical grid. And definitely points that we have considered in our background documents as we create these recommendations. Martin, I see you've unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to add that HRAI has been fairly actively talking with the Ontario government, including the Minister of Energy, on this file. And we shared with him and his staff the study that was done with the Ontario Geothermal Association and Dunsky Energy Consulting, which talks about the beneficial grid impacts of investing in geothermal heat pump systems, specifically because of their low peak impacts, the reduced peak impacts relative even to air source heat pumps. So they have some of those data. We presented some of that information and recommended strongly that it's a worthwhile investment in energy usage technology as much as it is in building up new grid capacity. Whether that kind of recommendation ever sees the light of day, we'll see, but we'll persist in that because we do have to address the peak impact concern. Anyway, that's a conversation we've been having, and we think we can carry on one way or the other with a recommendation of this type. Okay, Chelsea, back to you.
Thanks. And a similar nature, the next recommendation would call for a municipal and community building retrofit program. It would see the Ontario government invest in a retrofitting program that would target municipally owned community buildings. This would be similar to a federal program that is already running through FMC, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which provides federal funding to municipalities to create these retrofits. We hope that this would encourage municipalities across the province to retrofit capital projects to improve energy efficiency in their facilities, as well as helping Ontario communities of all sizes to use less energy, lower greenhouse gas emissions, and improve indoor air quality. We hope that this recommendation will also help stimulate economic investments, job growth, and reduce energy costs throughout the province. So Matt, could you pull up the poll for this one?
Happy to. Quick clarification, is this poll 5 or poll 6?
Poll 6.
Poll 6. We should do poll 5 and 6 back to back, because I think just we missed poll 5 just because we pulled up poll 4 again. Either way, so we'll do poll 4 first and then poll 5 again. So just here we go, poll 5, and this is in regards to the last recommendation. So we'll get this one and then I'll poll 6. Okay. Here's poll 5. Now here's poll 6 in relation to the recommendation on the screen right now. Okay, and that's everyone in for poll 6.
Perfect. So that was the overview of all of the recommendations. I want to thank everyone for participating and providing your feedback through the polls. I don't see any other additional questions in the chat function or the Q&A. So maybe we'll give a minute should anyone have any residual comments or questions.
I see a question from Tim on training.
Oh, perfect. Martin, did you want to comment on our proposal for skilled development fund, that training involved in that would be in line with what we're asking for?
Sure. I'll say that as Chelsea elaborated earlier, HRAI's identified that workforce development is by far the top need of the industry relative to taking action on climate. We need to retrain, upskill lots of people in the industry. And on top of that, we need to find more people. This is a known problem, known challenge, I should say, and one that we're wanting to address. So we have a number of projects, I'm going to say, that HRAI is interested in pursuing. All of them will require some support from government, and the way we're positioning this, both with the provincial governments and the federal government, is if you want the HVACR industry to lead and be kind of progressive on the transition to low carbon technologies, they will do so, but they won't do so in the time that will meet government expectations. So if you want more people doing clean technologies, we are going to need help from government. So our proposals are always framed as helping to accelerate the transition of technicians of companies to low carbon leaders. And that involves a variety of things. We have a proposal to NRCan right now that talks about identifying what the skills gap is currently between a typical gas technician and what will be needed from a professional, like a well-trained heat pump installer. We want to do a gap analysis on that and then identify training needs that will be, we'll need to talk to colleges and training providers to fill those gaps or fill them ourselves at HRAI or through partners. Yes, we are including training on A2L refrigerants. We're working on training that will fill that gap. And in fact, we're even talking to provincial governments across the country about making such training compulsory via regulation in the same way it exists for ODP refrigerants currently. There's a feeling we've picked up from contractors that unless training is compulsory, we won't see the uptake that the industry needs. So that's part of our plan. And a whole lot of other things which we don't really have time to go into. We've got lots of ideas that we've picked up from industry and about training needs. All of them, however, will probably depend to some degree on government support. So we've been laying this kind of at the government's doorstep to say, we're prepared to go down this path, but we need assistance from you to put the training out there and make it available and to nudge contractors and others to go down this path. I know that sounds fairly vague, but it's partly because there's a lot of detail in the training plans that we have. We've, I think in the last 12 months, submitted 3 or 4 different proposals to give different government agencies to support plans that we have to help move our members along. I think this question came from Tim, and if that doesn't answer your question sufficiently, I'm happy to take it offline and we can discuss it in a little more detail. Hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, so maybe we'll give one more minute. Does anyone have any questions? They can put it in the chat, and I'll just continue by saying Thanks everyone for joining us. Again, like I mentioned, we will have another survey submission. So that will be sent out through our HRAI newsletter. So if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to our newsletter. We'll also be sending out direct emails from myself where you can fill out a survey providing further comments on the recommendations that we've reviewed today, and as well as provide any other comments you have on other topics that you'd like for us to include. So those are other ways that you can participate and provide feedback. So I see no other questions or comments. So we may, sorry, go ahead, Martin.
No, I was just going to say it means that obviously you've put very good recommendations on the table. I'm going to interpret this as being our members are happy with what we're recommending, and only being a little facetious here. But you know, thank you to those who did show up for this and support the direction we're taking. We do want to be sure that the positions we take forward to government are supported by members, and maybe we'll get a broader response for when we put the survey out to the membership at large. Chelsea, and what was the timing on that? Can you remind me? We're putting the survey out.
It will be going out this Thursday through our newsletter, and direct emails to members will go out tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. So seeing no other comments or questions, we will wrap up today's webinar. So thanks everyone again, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar and seeing your feedback through our survey.
Thank you all.